Let's bring in the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. I want to ask you more about the president hosting the Hanukkah celebration tonight, ISIS and what happened in Australia and all of that. But first of all, you let us know that there's going to be a big address to the nation tomorrow night at 9. So do tell, what's it all about?
We greatly look forward to President Trump addressing the nation tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern. I hope your audience will tune in, and Americans across the country will tune in to hear from their president as well about the historic accomplishments that he has garnered for our country over the past year. If you look at the security of our border, if you look at stopping Joe Biden's inflation right in its tracks, bringing down gas prices to the lowest level in 5 years, President Trump will be talking about what's to come. The best is truly yet to come, as he often says. And so he'll be addressing the country about all of his historic accomplishments over the past year, and maybe teasing some policy that will be coming in the new year as well as we head into this Christmas season.
Quite the tease. All right, 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow night. Karoline will be watching for that. Welcome back to America Reports. This is President Trump when asked specifically about the ongoing growing threat that is coming from ISIS. Listen.
Do you still have confidence in the Syrian president?
I do. I mean, this had nothing to do with him. This is a part of Syria that they really don't have much control over. And it was a surprise. He feels very badly about it. He's working on it. He's a strong man. And no, this had nothing to do with the Syrian government. This had to do with ISIS.
What will the U.S. response be?
As a response, they'll be hit hard.
They'll be hit hard. He is vowing very serious retaliation as a response. What can you tell us we could be seeing from the president as far as action?
Well, I won't get ahead of the president and our commander-in-chief on any actions that he may take with respect to ISIS in the Middle East in this second term. We know in President Trump's first term, he completely destroyed and demolished the ISIS caliphate. He took out some of their key top members and leaders. And because of President Trump's policies in Syria and beyond, the Middle East is growing to be a safer place every day. If you look at how President Trump has embraced the Syrian president, removed sanctions from that country, and what happened, this absolute tragedy that took place of our soldiers who were killed, that was largely because of the dereliction of duty from the last administration, and it reinforces President Trump's policy in this country now, embracing a leader who he as well is committed to eradicating ISIS. He signed onto a document right here at the White House at the behest of President Trump to join the United States in fighting ISIS in his country. So that mission will continue, and tomorrow, unfortunately, and very sadly, President Trump will be heading to Dover Air Force Base to meet with the families of the fallen and to receive their bodies here at home.
Yeah. The dignified transfer of remains. It's a very solemn ceremony. Clearly, though, ISIS remains a threat in many parts of the world, and the ideology that it spreads, as we saw in Australia, is still a danger. I wanted to ask you about the economy. J.D. Vance had the economic speech today. Delayed jobs data came out and showed that 64,000 jobs were created during the month of November. But what that means really kind of depended on which headline you read. I put together a smattering of them. The New York Times, U.S. unemployment rate rose in November, a warning sign for the economy. Reuters, U.S. job growth beats expectations in November. NPR, the U.S. just added just 64,000 jobs in November, a sign the labor market is slowing. Reuters, futures turn positive after jobs data. I mean, you look at all those headlines, you don't know which way to turn here. So how do you read it?
Well, I know our economic director, Kevin Hassett, was out here addressing it this morning, and President Trump is focused on putting Americans back to work. And if you look at the job gains historically throughout this past year, what's most remarkable about the labor market right now is that President Trump is putting American citizens back into the labor force. And we know under the previous administration and Joe Biden that 100% of the jobs gained were for foreign-born workers. These were for people who flooded our country and took the jobs of hardworking Americans. And so President Trump's policies of not just border security, but also incentivizing investment into our country. He's gone overseas to recruit trillions of dollars in new investments, new jobs, economic growth into our manufacturing industry here at home. We're going to continue to see all of that come to fruition, which means more jobs for hardworking Americans and also an increase in their wages. If you look at the wage growth that is has taken place over the past year as well. On average, the American worker is earning about $1,200 more over a year thanks to President Trump's policies. Under Joe Biden, they were losing on average $3,000 per year. And so this president is focused on pro-growth policies for American workers, not foreign workers, for putting people back to work, particularly in our manufacturing industry, which has always been the backbone of our nation's economy.
Before we leave the top of the economy, I want to ask you about gas prices. We know this is, historically a big point to cover as we head into the midterm elections. And we have seen gas prices coming down. They are below $3 a gallon now. J.D. Vance talked about this earlier today in Allentown, PA. Listen.
You know why energy prices are lower? You know why gas prices have come down so much? Because we finally got an American president who wants to invest in American energy and American workers instead of green energy boondoggles that are produced overseas.
So when the president and the vice president get together and they talk with their energy and economic teams, how much lower do you believe that this White House and its policies can get those gas prices as we head into the new year? I mean, are we looking at $2 a gallon?
Well, that's what we're already seeing, Sandra, in many states across the country. In fact, in places like Colorado, where there's an abundance of natural gas that President Trump and this administration are finally tapping into, you see that gasoline is below $2 a gallon, which is a remarkable feat in just 10 months. If you look at what Joe Biden did to gas prices, in many states across the country, it was upwards and more than $5 a gallon. So the national average is the lowest it's been in 5 years, and we do expect that number to continue to decline as President Trump's energy policies continue to kick in. And he made up the slogan, drill, baby, drill. And that's what our Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, has been focused on since day one. God blessed our country with amazing resources right under our feet. And as the vice president was saying, President Trump believes in tapping into those resources, not just to drive down energy costs and inflation, but also for our national security. The previous administration's energy policy made no sense. We were begging foreign nations around the world to produce this most critical resource for us, while inflation was jacked up to a record high 9%. Not under President Trump. We're already seeing the effects of his America First energy policy, and Americans will continue to see that in the months and the years to come.
I wanted to ask you, Karoline, about the two-part series of articles in Vanity Fair on Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, and the president's inner circle. I mean, clearly there was a lot of cooperation between the White House and Vanity Fair on this, because there's numerous interviews that Susie Wiles had with the writer over the course of pretty much a year. Portraits were taken of his inner circle, including her, J.D. Vance, Stephen Miller. I mean, it looks like the White House was working hand in glove with Vanity Fair, and yet here's Susie Wiles' reaction to the series of articles. Quote, "The article published early this morning is a disingenuously framed hit piece on me and the finest president, White House staff, and cabinet in history. Significant context was disregarded, and much of what I and others said about the team and the president was left out of the story. I assume after reading it that this was done to paint an overwhelmingly chaotic and negative narrative about the president and our team." She goes on after that. You can read the full thing on X, but what happened? What went wrong?
Well, look, I would just echo my boss, Susie Wiles, who is the best chief of staff in our nation's history, working for the greatest president in our nation's history, and that this was, unfortunately, another attempt at fake news by a reporter who was acting disingenuously and really did take the chief's words out of context. But I think most importantly, the bias of omission was ever present throughout this story. The reporter omitted all of the positive things that Susie and our team said about the president and the inner workings of the White House. And as Susie said today, it's deeply unfortunate that happened, but it won't distract us from making America great again. And President Trump has been such a productive president and has accomplished more in 11 months than most presidents do in 8 years because of his vision and his tenacity, which is executed on and facilitated by our great White House chief of staff, Susie Wiles, whom I'm very proud of to call a boss and a mentor and a friend.
Yeah, his inner circle, the president's inner circle, family coming to her defense. Don Jr. just posting Susie Wiles, by far the most effective and trustworthy chief of staff that my father has ever had. We appreciate you joining us for this very private White House briefing. Karoline, we appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
We always love the private briefing. Thanks. Come back again soon.
Okay.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.